Welcome back, folks, to another episode of Charm City Heavyweights Podcast, brought to you by Grade 8 Sports Memorabilia in Parkville, Maryland. I'm the host, Matt Trigger. With me tonight, as always, is my co-host, Josh Merrill. What's going on, Josh?
So Matt coming live from a sad man cave.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about, but more importantly, we have a special guest with us. He was on the Super Bowl 47 Ravens championship team. He was the starting left tackle.
He's a big part of that championship team.
Big part of the team, one of the leaders on the offensive line. He is a 2023 College Football Hall of Fame inductee from the University of Miami Hurricanes, Bryant McKinnie. How you doing, Bryant?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Good. Thank you for joining the show. We really appreciate you coming on. So before we get started, man, how's the retirement life treating you so far?
Retirement's been pretty good for me. I've been able to kind of branch out and start doing other things. Like my company, Let's Chat, we do language translation in real time. From SMS, chat support, websites, like text message, everything we do. NFL, we've done their Game Pass for the past 2 seasons. Different clients are like Major League Soccer, McDonald's, Bojangles, on the University of Miami's website. So we have a few big clients, so doing good. And then my foundation, been working on that. And I have a panel for my fundraiser next month. We speak on mental health awareness.
It's very important. It's very important. Josh and I are big proponents of mental health. If you don't mind, kind of divulge a little bit more into that. Like, how do you help the mental health awareness with your foundation?
So we're doing this April 13th, actually, is down here at the Hard Rock Casino. We're having a panel. So I have a therapist, I have a psychologist, I have a surgeon who I know, I have and 2 reality stars who have dealt with, mental health issues. And then where it came into play for me is when I retired, there was 2 players who was having some issues, and they didn't really like to kind of open up or talk to their family about it. And they rather talk to me because I was a former player who kind of been in their shoes and things like that. And I had found myself I had to go down to like a psych ward one time for one of the guys because he had got Baker Act and sent there. And I have to talk to him. And I realized like this is for real. And people need an outlet. People need to know the signs and things like that and how to get people help and things like that. So I wanted to really like make that a thing and just know that you got to check on people's mental health because like those guys are the people in their family who was always like the go-to person, the strong individual, but it's like, who do they go to? You know what I'm saying? They don't feel comfortable going to their family because their family relies on them so much. So like they have to talk to other peers, and that's kind of what it was. And then I'm in this NFL choir as well, the Players Choir. We won America's Got Talent last year. We
That's awesome.
In the semifinals. And being around those guys too, and I hear like a lot of those conversations with those guys, like they're happy to kind of have like a locker room type of vibe, and people kind of, going through their own things at home and in their marriages, things like that, and they get a chance to kind of, because we still do shows, so when we take trips, guys get to just kind of get with each other and kind of have conversations, just kind of process what they're going through with each other too. So just different things like that I realize is needed.
I wanted
to, from a men's standpoint too. I feel like there's always these women empowerment events, but it's like nothing like that where men can really, talk.
Hey, that's cool though, man. You guys, okay? So you mentioned that you made the semifinals on America's Got Talent. You've played on the biggest stage in college football, the NFL. You've been in a ton of big games. What was it like doing that? What was there? Similarities?
That was a different energy, like the preparation, because there was a lot of practice and rehearsals for that show. But it was just different to me. I would say because when you play football, the crowd is around you, but you're never looking at them. They're like around you. For the most part, if you're on the road, you're trying to block the crowd out. But being face to face with the crowd and you're performing, like you can see their energy, like they kind of feed you like energy a little bit because if they're excited, it gets you, hype. So it's a little different. Because in football, for the most part, I block out the crowd, whether I'm home or away. It's like I'm focused on, who's in the huddle, and I'm focused on the person across from me. The crowd is not like I'm on offense, so it's not like, you know what I mean?
Right.
If I'm home, it's quiet. Like if I'm on the road, it's like you got to learn how to block it out. But there is like the crowd is like feeding you energy.
I can imagine the differences. It's just crazy that you get a chance to showcase a different talent on a national stage, and a lot of people probably didn't expect a bunch of football players to be able to sing like that.
Not at all. Simon really loved us too. So we on that show we
go ahead. I'm sorry.
So so we made it to the semifinals, and then each judge, there's 4 judges. Each judge is allowed to bring one person back for the finals, and then each judge you select somebody, and then you have to vote out of the 4. You have to pick one. So Simon brought us back as a wild card, but we didn't win the vote. Somebody else ended up winning, and they went back to the finals. But yeah, I think it was just definitely fascinating, and it was just something that was like, wow, like who would ever thought these big guys who's out there playing football can sing. Yeah, that's dancing too. We had to learn routine, so it was like singing and dancing.
Wow, that's impressive, man. Kind of kicking over to one of the more recent accolades you just got inducted into the 2023 Collegiate Hall of Fame. I know that you spent your entire collegiate career at the University of Miami, and you were there when the Hurricanes were the hottest team in the NFL. I mean, hottest team in college football for NFL prospects. How did you feel having that honor bestowed upon you, based on your collegiate and, your ensuing NFL run?
Ask the last part again. When the what?
I'm sorry, it might have been breaking up. How do you feel? How did it feel to have the honor bestowed upon you to be named into the Collegiate Hall of Fame after your run at Miami and in the NFL?
What's crazy? It's like I don't know where my antennas are, but like I wasn't even aware for a while that they even had a College Hall of Fame. Ed Reed went in a couple years ago, and that's when it came on my radar. Going there, I think I just went there and just played and didn't really think about like all the other stuff. Because even when I went to the University of Miami's Hall of Fame, I feel like it was never discussed while I was in school. I never heard anybody talk about the school's Hall of Fame. And then, about to get inducted. They made the announcement in January, but we all have our ceremony in December out in Vegas. So very excited, I mean, they talked about my college career a lot, so it was exciting to finally be able to, I guess get into the Hall of Fame, which is I still kind of can't believe it, I guess, but I know it's definitely exciting. And I have a great class too, like Dwight Freeney. He was my rival in college. He's in my class as well as Reggie Bush and Tim Tebow. So it's a great class of individuals. So
that's a historic class right there for sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
Josh, go ahead, man. I know that you've been waiting all day for this, bud.
How you doing, Bryant?
How you doing?
Good. Hey, man, I always tell people the Super Bowl year. I know you didn't start the full year, but the offensive line got hot once you started and it clicked. Do you think that offensive line doesn't get enough credit? Because you guys were on fire. Joe had all day throughout the entire playoff run, and when things started heating up, I don't think you guys get the right amount of credit. Do you agree?
Maybe not. I mean, maybe not, I guess. But that line was really good. That line was supposed to be the lineup for that season. Because during that preseason, I was starting, and then they wanted to go with this no huddle. The offensive coordinator, I forget his name. He tried to change that.
Cam Cameron.
Yeah, Cam. So going into that season, I was playing all the, I graded out the highest in that preseason. And then we had, I think, like a Monday night or a Thursday night game. It was like a primetime game, the first game. And they called me in the office that like, we want to go with this no huddle thing. We don't know if you'll be able to keep up, so we're going to start like a young guy. We're going to move the line around. And they had the opportunity to see if I could or not. It was just like, this is what we're doing. So, but there was also like some incentives in there for me playing a certain amount of plays that I felt like it played a part in it too. Like if I forget what the number was, but if I played a certain amount of plays, I got a bonus. So I feel like that played a part in my situation too. That line definitely should get credit because that line in that playoff run went against some top pass rushers. You had my rival, like I said, Dwight Freeney. That was the opening. That was the first game. Him and Robert Mathis and all those guys. That D line was pretty good then in Indianapolis. And then the second round, you had Doomerville and you had what's the other one?
Marcus Blair. DeMarcus Ware.
No,
It was Von
he's
Miller.
in Buffalo now. Von Miller.
Von
Yeah,
Miller. Okay.
So you had Doomer and Von Miller, who were great pass rushers. You know what I mean? Then you had New England after that, and then even in the Super Bowl, you had Justin Smith and Alden Smith. You know, coming off of one side too. Like you had some great matchups throughout the whole playoffs all the way to the Super Bowl. So I think the line got some credit, but maybe we could have got a little bit more.
I agree because you guys, I mean, and Joe had all day. I mean, he went on a historic playoff run. You guys definitely don't get enough credit. What led you to come to the Ravens, man? I know when you were in Minnesota, you were what, a seventh overall pick, right? What led you to come to Baltimore after Minnesota?
Minnesota, I didn't want to restructure my contract, and everything was like kind of like some weird timing. They tried to call my mom to kind of talk to her to convince me to restructure my contract, but my mom was on a cruise, so I can get in touch with her. So basically, I had the last decision, and they're like, "If you don't restructure, we'll have to let you go." And I was like, "I'm fine with that." And the minute I got released, the linebacker, he went to the University of Miami as well. He was younger than me. And by the time I got there, he was gone. I think he went to San Fran. I forget his name. But basically, he reached out to me and asked if he could give Ray Lewis my number. And I was like, sure. And like, as soon as I got released, I was like, Ray was like kidding me up, like, oh, you coming here, this and other. And I was like, nobody's reached out to my agent yet. So, and I got to squared away everything. And some days that went by, he would keep calling me, checking on me, and just seeing like the progress. And, you know, then eventually they did reach out to my agent. My agent told me, but I was still trying to get a feel because this was like I think it was going my 10th year. So it was like I wanted to go somewhere where I felt like I had a chance to win a Super Bowl. Like, because I had just left the Vikings, and that was the furthest I've been with the NFC Championship, but we lost that.
The Saints, right?
That's back when they had sudden death overtime in New Orleans. And that was the furthest, that was the best record I ever had as a NFL player at the time. And that was the furthest I ever made it. So I was really just like, at this point, like, this is year 10. I don't have much more time. I have to figure out where I can go. So even Indianapolis was a place that I was just looking to see where I could fit in that can make a good playoff run and get to the Super Bowl. And then, you know, Ray just kept calling me and just telling me, like, you're the Mr. Peace, you can help us get the Super Bowl, this and the other. And I was listening. And then Ed Reed finally called me, and I was like, oh, dad. In my whole career, I've never had any other Hurricanes on my team. So I was like, okay, there's a few Hurricanes over there. I might as well go there. Matt Burke was my center for 7 years in Minnesota. So it's like, I know how he is. I already know how he operates. So that's perfect because I played with him. So things started making sense the more and more I looked into the team. My only thing was I had to just check, like, are you sure that, you know, Michael Orr is The Blind Side? Had a whole movie about him. So it's like, are you sure he's okay with, you know, moving the right tackle? Because I'm not coming there to play right tackle because that's not my strength at all. You know, I've never played right tackle. Right. And he was like, oh, no, he's fine. He's okay with moving and playing next to Marshall Yonder and other. And I'm like, all right, as long as you tell me he's sure, because I don't want to be any tension or anything. And they're like, no, just don't worry about it. You're good. So once all that got cleared up, you know, I made the decision to come.
Wow. I mentioned you were a really high draft pick. What was the pressures of that, man? I mean, did you know early on in your career, like, I'm going to be able to play at this level? Or, I mean, I'm sure the nerves are crazy. That's a lot of pressure.
You also got to remember, I don't even know if you remember this or not, but when I got drafted, I have the second longest holdout in rookie history.
Wow.
So I was held for like 98 days.
I didn't know that.
It was like a whole lot going on with that. So I didn't get into like the end of October in the season. Somehow still made the all rookie team.
Wow.
I guess wasn't too many rookies doing much that year for me to still make it. But I came in, so I kind of came in behind the 8 ball. I missed training camp. I missed half the season. It's like I just had to jump out there and get thrown into a game and just just start playing. But I was able to do so. And I'm super competitive, so I knew I would be able to do well. And I looked at myself like, if I'm the weakest link on this offensive line, we should be okay because I'm going to hold my end of the bargain up. And then as I got into year 2 and 3, I started getting more acclimated and better. It's a big difference from college. The NFL is a lot more technique based because a lot of people can be stronger than you when you first get in there. Because I'm only 22, you know what I'm saying? It's still developing, and then just mentally too. They just mentally can be just have better placement, hand placement, just different things that they can do that sometimes can beat the actual physical part. So as you get older, you get the combination of both. When you're still young. By the time you're like 25, you have a combination of both, the mental and the physical aspect down, and start to play at a higher level.
Yeah. All right, Brian. I only got a couple more, man. Recently, this offseason, I've been watching the Ravens since day one, man, since they existed, and I've never seen an offseason. I've never seen anything like this as a Ravens fan. This is the first time I can remember like negative stuff coming out about the Ravens. Has all this surprised you, or is it more like, all right, now more people know what I've known for years?
No, it's actually surprising me. I would have thought the Ravens would have kind of, had put their quarterback who has come in. I feel like have done a pretty great job of making it exciting to even watch the Baltimore offense. I thought they would put him in a better position than they have by now, and I don't know if they're using him as an example for something else or what it is, but I definitely felt like, and you got to look at it from a player too. It's like, I've come in and I've done my part. Why aren't you taking care of me? So it can make a player feel a certain way too.
Yeah. I mean, but do you think, Bryant, like what he's asking, I mean, none of us really know what they offered, what he turned down, but from like what's leaked, like what's TV has shown us, do you think the Ravens have made him fair offers, or do you think he's getting, he's asking a bit much? I mean, because in reality, I love him, and I wanted him to be a Raven for a long time, but at the end of the day, he won one playoff game. And, Ravens fans were used to getting, divisional round. Yeah. We're used to the playoffs. We want to win.
Right.
And he hasn't really done that. As much as I love him, and I wanted him to stay because I believe you put the right pieces around him. I do believe he can, get us back there. But the whole thing was shocking to me. I don't like none of it. I just want it to be over at this point. Today hurt. I knew it was coming. He's been saying this without saying it for a few months.
What was said today? Because I haven't caught up.
So today he said that what was it, March 3rd? He requested a trade from the Ravens. He wants to move on.
And
the internet broke today.
He released the tweets, Bryant, right when the owners' meetings were starting in Arizona. And
right when Harbaugh was starting his press conference, he tweeted it.
Harbaugh took the podium and he released
got bombarded.
And then he released a goodbye letter to Baltimore.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I kind of want to build off of that.
It was awkward, man, because Harbaugh was like playing it off like he's our quarterback. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, it was crazy, man.
I did want to build off of that, though, Bryant, because, like you said, you got to look at it from all different perspectives. And at the end of the day, Lamar has done what he was asked to do, and that's get out on the field and perform to the best of his abilities. Do you think that a lot of this could have been avoided? Now, this might be an obvious question, but I want to hear, we like to ask the players. Do you think a lot of this could have been avoided if he would have had representation?
It probably could have went a different way with some representation. Possibly, yeah. To have somebody speak on your behalf who has a relationship with, the team, could possibly have went a different way. I do know that players try to make the best business decision for themselves, just like the team does. And I do feel like a lot of fans always kind of side with the team, and not look at it from a player standpoint of I have to make the proper business decision for myself too. Because, it's a mutual agreement between basically two businesses, really, because like that person is now a business too. So I think he's trying to make the right decision. I don't know who is advising, his side or whatever, but hopefully it can get worked out. But I don't know. Like I said, when you drag things out like this and people feel like they have done, which was asked of them, they can start to feel away. And I kind of said it earlier, like, you'll start to feel away, like, why haven't you just taken care of me and locked me in and make me feel secure, and then I can grow, or we can grow as an organization together. So I know that can raise a hair on people's heads sometimes.
And I do hear you on that. And the thing is,
Yeah, he's right. We do. Because for us, it's the team, man, and you guys, you're the player. It's your body.
Right, but also
I get it. I get it.
Players have to do what's best for them too, because you never know what can happen.
Oh,
Next
exactly.
year. You know what I'm saying? So
Exactly.
it's to me, it seems like it's always okay if a player wants to leave. The fans are like, oh, he wants to leave. Oh, he's asked for this. But then the team decides to let him go. It's like, oh, well, we just made it this. Like,
Exactly.
I just feel like it's always right with the team. Where sometimes some of the decisions aren't always fair to the player.
Yeah, you're right.
See where I stand with it though, Brian, is I think it's equal parts to who you can point the finger at. And the thing is, the blame game is always ugly, especially between a player you love and the team you support.
Mm-hmm.
I think the NFL Players Association is kind of using this as their scapegoat in terms of they want guaranteed contracts for everybody. Eventually, they're the only major sports league in the entire United States that don't have guaranteed contracts across the board for their players.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that they're the largest in terms of number of players, but I mean, that's for a separate. But I feel like the NFL Players Association has their own agenda. I feel like Lamar has this number that he feels he's worth, and he's not going to move off of. And then I blame the Ravens for not getting this done, especially after his MVP year, and then going to the playoffs again the following year. Now I know that we didn't get to the Super Bowl, but they had a chance to give him just a little bit more than Josh Allen, and I don't feel like we're having this discussion right now. So I feel like there's equal parts to go around, and a lot of people will blindly follow the team because that's their team. But I just feel like it's a mixture of a new regime in Baltimore with Eric DeCosta running it, and then I feel like it's also a mix of a new generation of players, because your generation of players didn't have social media to air out all their grievances, and there wasn't a aspect of having a following the way that they do in your generation. Do you feel like it's a mix of the new generation with the new administration?
Oh, absolutely. Because if Ozzy was there, I don't know if things would still have played out this way. And then, having social media is you really don't have to speculate. The player can tell you basically from their platform how they feel. And I feel like a lot of players don't mind kind of getting on their platforms, whether it's Twitter or Instagram, and kind of sometimes ranting and saying how they feel about certain situations. And that puts it out there in the air. Like, everybody's now aware of how somebody really feels. In the past, you had to kind of speculate, or a reporter would have to come in and interview you, but now people are their own news feed.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a huge difference, having to talk to a reporter here and there, or just talking to a bunch of them around your locker or anywhere on the practice field, anywhere really. We like Josh said though, Brian, we just want to see a resolution to it. In your opinion, do you see Lamar fixing this with Baltimore, or do you think that he's in a different uniform next year?
I think mentally he's probably already checked out and ready to go somewhere else. But I think Baltimore tried to figure out something to keep him here, or at least satisfy him for a little bit of something. I think he'll still be in a Ravens uniform, even though mentally he's probably moved on. Just feels like, I feel like they don't really care about him. But it's a business, and I feel like I had to learn that when I first came in. Like, I told you, I had to go through this holdout forever. It's a business too at the end of the day. So everybody has to just understand that this is not like college, where college is, it's fun. It's like a family, brotherhood. This is business. I've watched so many people come in and out those locker rooms throughout the years. And I remember just like in training camps and things, I never really tried to get too close to everybody, because, you come in there with 83 people you want to leave. 30 people want to leave because we're going to end up with like 53-man roster. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, instead of trying to get to know everybody, it's like, I know who the main people are going to still probably be here. It's like, I'm cool with them. I socialize here and there, but then we got to know people after their roster was complete. So many people are coming out their locker room, each year. So I think he'll still be there this season. after the season's like that's when they really gonna have to figure something out. Or maybe they haven't figured it out during the middle of the season, like mid-season or before the first game, something.
Josh, I know do you have anything else, buddy?
Yeah, the only thing I was curious about, Bryant, was that's a special team here, obviously. Only two teams in the history have done what you guys have done. Do you guys keep in touch at all, or do you have like parties or reunions or anything like that?
Well, we just had a reunion for the Ravens for the first time in October. It was marked the 10
Oh,
years.
that's right. That's right.
Right. That was the first time. And all the
Wow.
guys really enjoyed it. And they now amongst us, like we're all in a group chat now because of that. And amongst us, we are now trying to plan like times where we may go back for a game, you know what I'm saying, as a group or whatever, and kind of on our own. Like
Wow.
they did
That's
that for
awesome.
us for the Super Bowl, but like, you know, people really enjoyed it.
Wow. And I just want to let you know, Bryant, and it's not because you're on here and I'm talking to you, but I always say you, that offensive line, and when we put you in, everything changed and everything just went hot at the right time. And you guys allowed Joe, you're a part of
Yeah.
one of the greatest plays, the Mile High Miracle. They play that every year
Yeah.
when it gets close to the Super Bowl.
It did.
So,
The line was really, I mean, because you had me and KO, you had
mm-hmm,
Marshall and Mike who were really close already, you know,
mm-hmm,
naturally. I
mm-hmm.
was KO's mentor. Like they assigned you like a rookie, and I was his mentor. So we were
Wow.
already close too. So it was
Yeah,
already chemistry on both sides. And you had Matt Burke in the middle, who was a seasoned veteran. You know what I
right.
mean? Who everybody had already played, you know, along with, and I knew him already previously from Minnesota. So that lineup, it was a lot of chemistry there, and it kind of made sense.
Yeah.
So even when they made the switch, because even you got to look at it, we had just lost to Denver a few weeks prior and have to go back to play
Slaughtered.
them.
They killed us.
Yeah, and then the lineup, it was just one person, just switch one person. It was like,
And everything just blossomed.
I wanted to ask you about. I know this. You know, you've had thousands of plays in your career, Bryant, but there's this one play with you that sticks out with me, and I told Josh this earlier. I can't wait to ask you. And it's funny. Our producer's backstage. He's a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, Bryant. There's a game I remember. I think we were in Hines, and you were blocking James Harrison, and he is notorious for giving Baltimore offensive tackles the blues over the years. And I remember you folded him back and made his helmet touch his ass. That was one of the like greatest blocks I ever seen.
you know
Just
what that
where
is? I think that was my first game. It was in Baltimore. It was
it was
my
okay,
very first
okay.
game as a Raven. It was an opening game. It was an opening season. It was home, and it was against Pittsburgh. And I just remember being when I first got there and just going to the barbershop, just different places around. People was like, "We don't care," you know, like we care, but beating this team is like the big deal.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we don't care about everybody else as much, but beating Pittsburgh was like a big thing, and it was like kind of drilled in my head every time I went somewhere. And I had played him not often, but I played him as a Viking before, but not often. But I just watched the film, and I did see like he would always kind of terrorize a little bit the tackles at times, just because of his being able to get low and being explosive and stuff. And I just studied him and watched film, and just that was a great welcome to Baltimore. You know it was that opening game, and then we won too. So
you folded him, and I was like, and I've never seen anybody fold James Harrison, but
yeah,
he
May
got
be the only one.
he got folded. I was like, oh shit, McKinnie just folded him. See, I played offensive line in high school, so I was only 5 years removed from high school at that point.
okay,
I was 23 when we won our last Super Bowl, and I'm looking. I'm like, it was pure technique, but you got right under his armpits and you just folded him. I was like, that dude's strong as shit. There's no way. There's no way. Because those games were like, they stick out in our mind. And, we all remember, Pittsburgh games for good or bad reasons, but what was it like going into Heinz Field later that year? What was it like being the away team in that Baltimore-Pittsburgh rivalry?
It almost reminded me of being like at Miami, Florida State. It was just like a big dislike for they didn't they didn't really care for us. And I just remember it was like kind of just like us against the world. It kind of felt like, because you're like in their territory at this point. Then they had this song that they play. I forget, like, what is it, like the 4-minute mark? It's some song they play, The Sticks, I think. It actually ended up liking the song, but it's a song that gets their crowd hype that they play. And you just feel the energy in there, but to be able to go in there and come out with a win, it just feels great.
Nothing like getting a bunch of drunk, ugly folks hyped up, during a football game.
What's funny too is Gino Gronkowski, his brother was the quarterback, the backup quarterback on the other side too. So like we went to Gino's parents' house for dinner, and I just know it was just so weird because it's like you have a son on each team, and this is like a big rivalry type of game, but it is what it is.
I wanted to ask you, and I know that you mentioned that there was the reunion, and is it weird seeing, I noticed before I preface this, I noticed that you're like on your exercise kick, you're on social media doing your workouts every day, you're stretching, your cardio, all that. What is it like seeing Marshall Yanda look like he's 195 pounds?
Him and Matt Berg. I'm like, what did y'all do?
because Matt was, when I interviewed Matt a couple of years ago, and he was so skinny, and because he played at like 310 or 315, and I know Marshall played at like 320, and just seeing those guys look like,
it was crazy because I seen Matt first, and I'm like, sheesh. But when I seen Marshall, because then Marshall also used to have facial hair. So Marshall was had like a bald face. He didn't have no facial hair. And I seen him. I'm like, this guy looks familiar. Like, he looks really familiar. Didn't realize it was Marshall at first. Like, this is like, I'm thinking he's like a tight end. I'm like, he's familiar. Because he's a lot slimmer. Like, I don't know how much he lost. Like, at least 50 pounds. He's lost a lot.
Yeah.
And just the fact that I remember Marshall just having the big facial hair and stuff like that. And then it's like a smooth bald face now. He actually looks like a lot younger. And it's just like, what did you do? Because I can't lose this weight.
Hey, me and Josh, we feel you on that. I was curious though, Bryant, because we've had the pleasure of talking to a couple of your teammates, Ray Rice and Bernard Pollard. Bernard's been a guest on the show a few times. I want to kind of take you back to the middle of the 2012 season, and Bernard set the stage in terms of what the situation was in the locker room, and I just wanted to hear your perspective on it. Things were a little tense. John was pushing you guys a lot harder at practice in the middle of the year. He was, still in kind of the militant coach mode. As an offensive player and a veteran leader on the team, being as though it was your 10th or 11th year in the league, what were your sentiments when the quote unquote, I use it loosely, the locker room mutiny happened? What was your stance on it? Were you hardlining for the team, or were you trying to be a mediator, or were you indifferent to all of it?
I was riding with my teammates.
Okay.
With what was going on, I agree with the stance that everybody had, and it was just something like that was probably needed to be done, it took place. So, and at the time, and I even talked to Coach Harbaugh when I went back in October, and I was like, "You're a totally different coach now than you were, with us." How I asked him, like, what year did he have to change? Because you had to change. It's a different caliber of guys. The personality is different. People are a little more, I'm gonna say, sensitive now too. So you had to make that adjustment. And he told me like around 2017, he just said certain things you just couldn't do, where you could talk to us kind of any kind of way, and just now you talk to some of those guys, they'll shut down, and that's no good as a coach, So he had to find ways to kind of reinvent himself, which I feel like he's doing a good job now because it seems like more of a player's coach. At the time, we was bumping heads with him, and I thought me and him was going to get along perfect because we had the same birthday. But I understood where the teammates was coming from.
Wow.
Was it more along the lines of the verbal communication with him, or was it the fact that he was still practicing you guys like it was
I personally
training camp?
think it was a situation where he wanted to make it known that he was the head coach, but we know that. But you still had like Ed Reed there, you still had Terrell Suggs, you had Ray Lewis. So those guys were kind of more of the leader. Like, you know, they say something kind of, we want to kind of listen to them, you know. So I think it was like a little control battle with him, and in some aspects. So I think that played a big part of him trying to really stake his claim as the head guy or the leader. But you also had Ray Lewis there too, or Ed Reed there too. You know what I mean? So it's like, who really is the leader? You
It was
know?
an internal power struggle. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, whatever the mediation was, that it worked because we went on to win it all. Do you believe that any of the leftover sentiment from that situation led to the team being blown up post Super Bowl?
Led to the team being what?
Being blown up in the aftermath of the Super Bowl?
Yeah, because now it's like we won the Super Bowl, but now let me get rid of all these people who kind of like push back. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of those guys who said things back or had a stance against him, he kind of severed ties with those guys. You know, just so happened I came back because a lot of the fans wanted me back. I took other visits to other places.
Yeah, like a month, right, Bryant? You went out for like a month shopping, didn't you?
Yeah, I went out to like San Diego. I
remember.
went out to a couple places, even in Miami. Went to a couple places, and then I just was like, oh, well, it's like, I feel like when you switch teams, like starting to go into a whole nother school again. So I'm like, do I really feel like going through this whole process of learning another area and having to re-meet new teammates? I might as well just go back to Baltimore. And I did that, but then I did that with now Ed Reed is gone, now Matt Burger's retired, Ray Lewis is like certain key people who was a big part of why I went in the first place are not even there anymore.
Yeah.
It had to be tough. And you know, a lot of it was contingent upon Joe. And it feels like deja vu all over again, minus
And
the Super
and
Bowl
during that
championship.
period of time too, all those guys were still there in the locker room, and Joe gifted all those guys except me because I wasn't there. So I still need to get from Joe from that Super Bowl season because they all had got gifts, but I wasn't. Remember, I was taking visits, so I wasn't even in the locker room yet, and I eventually came back.
Wow.
Oh, come on, Joe.
Yeah,
hey,
Joe.
I'll add Joe on Twitter. I don't care.
So I never got a gift. Like a lot of those guys had got gifts and stuff from, the following, the year before or whatever. But I wasn't present yet. I wasn't back on the team yet.
You know, kind of kicking it back to the 2012 run. What was your favorite game during that 4-game playoff stretch? Obviously, the Super Bowl is going to be the pinnacle for you. But leading up to Denver?
Denver was like, I remember being on the sideline at one point. I think we had like 4 minutes to go, and I was like, man, like we were down. I was like, hey, am I like really gotta pack up my stuff? Like start thinking about like I gotta pack up my place now and like go back home. And then I was blocking, so when I played with Jacoby, I only heard the crowd noise that made me realize something big just happened because my back was turned on that play. I didn't see, the actual pass. I just heard the reaction from the crowd. And when I seen that, and I just feel like when we got past them, because you got to remember the year before we lost in New England. Like, remember they said Lee Evans didn't catch the pass, and then they were saying, and then our kicker was like out of whack and he missed the field goal or whatever.
We remember that quite well.
So in the locker room after that game, Ray Lewis was like, "Oh, don't hold your heads low. We'll be back in the same position next year." Me, I'm like, what are the odds of us actually being back here in the same position, NFC Championship in New England? And then when we got past that game, I remember being on that plane ride back, like going back home, like, oh, we want to kill New England, like, you know what I'm saying? Because like, this is our chance to get like a rematch, like from a year ago. You know what I'm saying? And this was also like my third time now going to a championship game. I went to one NFC, and this is my second time in the AFC championship game. Like, something got to give. I keep being like right there at the doorstep for a Super Bowl. Like, it's year 11. Like, okay, it's time to kick this door in and get to a Super Bowl. So, yeah. that game was like they were the number 1 seed. They just beat us, like really bad, like a couple weeks prior, and now we're on the road at home at their home field with the oxygen. I remember people was having issues like with the breathing, and then it was freezing, it was cold, it was like all these different things that were kind of against us, and we still won.
I wanted to ask you about the now that you mentioned the New England game. I wanted to ask you about that. Josh and I were talking to Bernard about it because it was a play Bernard made. When Bernard knocked out Stephen Ridley, what was the atmosphere like in the stadium when the ball came loose? We recovered, and he was out before he hit the ground. The dude did a break dance and split and was out cold. What was that atmosphere like when you obviously the momentum changed for us and we ran away with it? What was the atmosphere like in New England with that crowd and the energy, and then just to see their will being taken from them in real time? What was that like?
It was just a great feeling, but I feel like we all kind of went in there with that mindset of just knowing that we were going to play really aggressive and hard and like really control the tempo of the game. I remember I think Ed Reed or something had got a pick, and like you seen Tom Brady like do some weird like kick, like something weird he did try to do to Ed, and it was just like you can see now by body languages and just certain personalities that it's not normal from certain people, that they're feeling a way about how we're playing too, and the amount of pressure that we're putting on them on offense and defense. So you could tell like their will was pretty much done.
Brian, what was that like in New Orleans on the Super Bowl, man? What was that like? I mean, I can't imagine the emotions you go through. But what's that feeling like, man? All them lights.
It felt like a college bowl game because you have media day, you have all these different events you have to go to and things like that leading up, especially earlier in the week. What y'all probably don't know is I used to play tennis on Thursday nights. We used to have to weigh in on Fridays. So I would usually have dinner and I would go take my tennis lesson to help me sweat some things out and then be able to weigh in tomorrow. Coach Harbaugh was aware of that, and he made me bring my tennis racket on my trip. So I had to bring my tennis stuff. And he made me play tennis the day before weighing, and I had to play against his assistant at the time. So he made like this big announcement, in the team meeting, like, oh, we're gonna have these two playing this and the other. He said, I'm gonna tell you who wins, tomorrow. So everybody's all like laughing and all, whatever. And then we go in there the next day, and he has to announce who won, and I won 6-3, 6-3.
Oh, wow.
And everybody was so surprised because I guess they didn't really know that I play tennis.
Wow.
But that was such a great experience being in New Orleans. I just feel like that's a perfect place to have like a Super Bowl. The New Orleans atmosphere, just the energy, and I just remember somebody telling me like the initial kickoff, just look around the stadium and just see so many lights going off at one time because everybody's taking pictures of the initial kickoff. And it just looks so crazy when you see it. And then, okay, that's my first Super Bowl. So halftime is longer, in Super Bowls than it is in the regular season. So, you get in there and you go over your plays and you're just still sitting there waiting for like an additional like 15 minutes because it's like 30-minute halftime or something like that. Compared to regular, it's like 12 or 15. And you could just hear the bass from like the show Beyonce was performing. So you hear the bass. You can't really tell what songs are being played. You just hear like bass and music and things like that. Only to come out there and the lights go out. The lights go out.
Yeah.
Now that you mentioned that.
Mentioned it. There you go.
Right.
Nice segue.
So, you come out at halftime. They kick off the ball to us. Jacoby runs back for a touchdown. So now that's 30 minutes of us being in the locker room doing absolutely nothing far as being on the field. So that's 30 minutes there. Jacoby runs the ball back. Defense is on the field. They're kind of driving. They get somewhere like midfield. Lights go out. So lights go out for another 30 minutes. So it's over an hour of us not doing anything. And initially, we didn't know what was going on. Because you heard something like short circuit. You started seeing the lights go out in sections around the stadium. And then I guess it was like their – I don't know, safety lights, security. I don't know, some like little lights were on, but not enough to play at all. And they kind of started giving us like time checks, like, oh, they're gonna turn on our generator, and you got to wait for it to warm back up and all this other stuff. But then we had to start stretching. But at first, mentally, I was like, "Is this game going to get continued to tomorrow? Like, what's happening? Like, you know?" And then I feel like the momentum for us, it kind of like just lost a little bit because it was a big lead leading up to that, and then all of a sudden they just closed the gap because I think we just kind of got out of rhythm a little bit as offense because we hadn't been on the field in over an hour.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now
it almost killed us. I mean, it allowed them to
skeptic in
crawl back.
Yeah, crawl back to the end where we're holding the ball last second. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The skeptic in me has asked every Super Bowl player that I've interviewed from that 2012 team, Bryant. I'm going to ask you the same thing. Do you believe that was a genuine accident, or do you not believe in coincidence? Because the way the game was going, Jacoby takes it to the house. That was going to be one of the more runaway blowout Super Bowls in history. And then, if the NFL loses viewers, they lose money. And that means there's not enough eyeballs on the field. Do you believe it was an actual something malfunctioning?
I think somebody might have made an executive decision.
There we go. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
I know I'm not crazy. Thank you for confirming that.
Ray Lewis makes it known he believes. He asks everybody about it. Right? He's on the same field with us. Somebody definitely hit a switch. Because that shit was over, man.
Well,
I started relaxing.
How does that happen?
Yeah.
Right. And
I started relaxing and
Beyonce just had a 25-minute concert.
Right.
Yeah.
Beyonce has a 25-minute concert, and this is a stadium that had security measures in place because of the hurricane 6 years before. So you can't tell me that there was no updating of the power structure post hurricane. So that's just me, though. But I'm glad that you confirmed that because I know that a lot of guys it was split. Matt didn't believe it, you did, and so did Bernard. And Ray was very non-committal on the whole situation. But yeah, man. But we're hitting towards the end of the show, Bryant. I want to thank you for coming on, man. You've been a great guest. I appreciate you. Giving us some of your time and answering our questions. Before I let you go, let all of our listeners know where they can find you on social media, and go ahead and plug your charity event again next month.
On all social media platforms is at Bryant McKinnie, BRYANT MCKINNIE. And I have a Cocktails and Conversations event coming up for the B Major Foundation April 13th at the Seminole Hard Rock Casino in Hollywood, Florida, where we're going to have a panel and we discuss mental health awareness. We also have a silent auction and raffles and things like that, and be able to, raise money I'm able to do a lot more in the community here, and I'm going to start branching out to Minnesota, New Jersey, and Baltimore.
Wow, awesome.
Fantastic. Bryant, hang around for post-show for a minute or two, and Josh, let's go ahead and wrap this up, man.
Yeah, Ravens fans are a mess. We're just going to end this one.